Welcome to Football Discussion Daily. My name is Joe, and I'm here with the co-host,
Yo.
CGO, or George. We're releasing this on the 20th of May, 2026. Quick reminder, like us, subscribe us. We release long form every single day on YouTube, short form every single day on Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms. All right, big news on Wednesday to decide the title. That is, of course, Southampton gets kicked out of the championship playoff for spying, and Middlesbrough will be playing against Hull, which is obviously the biggest news of the day, except Arsenal have won the title this season. It's been a great season for them, very defensively sound team. Man City drew Bournemouth 1-1, which means they cannot overtake Arsenal on Sunday. Arsenal have 82 points, Man City have 78. We also had Chelsea beating Tottenham 2-1, which ultimately probably won't be that consequential for Chelsea's final results. It doesn't look like they're going to qualify for Europe, but it does lead to an interesting final day where if West Ham wins, Tottenham basically need to draw in order to stay up, which is really interesting. George, let's talk first about Arsenal's season before we get into the specific games today. Arsenal, defensively sound, but probably not as exciting as some other Premier League teams. Do you feel like that's a valid narrative for this team, George?
Arsenal, I think they decided to just use a different approach because if you look at previous seasons, Arsenal has been very good when it comes to playing more of attacking football. So I feel maybe the coaches handling Arsenal felt maybe this approach is not the best for us if we want to win the league. So they came with a new approach, tried to be more pragmatic, and then people might say no, they will be defensive this season, but at the end of the day, it gave them the title. All the while they've been playing attacking style of football, throwing caution into the wind whenever they play against their opponent. They didn't win anything. So I think they were more cautious this time around whenever they play their opponents. And if you look at their last 2-3 games, you see that they were more cautious. They were just grinding out the result. Even against Burnley, they just got the 1-0 victory. Against West Ham, they got the one. They knew if they can just be getting, even if it is a slim win, they are getting very close to achieving their goal.
You know, George,
And
honestly,
it worked out.
I don't think this is the best Arsenal team of the last 4 years, because they've had basically 4 straight seasons where they've been in a title race. I feel like their strongest season was probably 2 seasons ago, where I think they got ended up with like 89 points, if I remember right, and City got pipped them by 1, something like that. I think that team was better. I mean, it's similar squad wise. It just they had fewer injuries, and I feel like they were a little fresher in terms of their tactics. And if you watch them perform, they were just a little sharper. You just had more mentality. I think this Arsenal team was very strong mentally that year. They just got hit by a better Man City team. Sometimes you win the league this Arsenal team has been great for 4 straight years, and with some injury exceptions last year. And this is the first year where I feel like they just had the title race didn't have another strong contender. So,
But Joe, can't we attribute this being mentally strong this season to the presence of having experienced players in the squad than in the past?
Yes, I agree. I mean, they brought in Gyökeres, who, I mean, Rice is, I think, a great leader. Gabriel and Saliba are great leaders. I think there's Saka, as young as he is, has a lot of experience, and I feel like is a leader by example in this locker room. I think he's exactly the type of mentality you want to have in a leader, and I think he's an absolutely future leader on this team in this league. But yeah, a lot of guys, you're 100% right. But they brought in Zubimendi can absolutely set the pace. Yeah. Like we talk about him as he was really wanted throughout Europe by Real Madrid, by Liverpool. There's a reason for that. He just can completely control a game along with Rice in the midfield.
Because if you look at the players they brought in during the transfer, most of them are in their mid or late 20s. The likes of Merino, the likes of Zubimendi, the likes of Gyökeres, the likes of Eberechieze. These are not young players. I think maybe the only person that is younger among those they brought in is maybe Noni Madueke, who is not too young as well. I think he's about 20.
Madueke wasn't brought in as a starter though. Like he was brought in for rotation, and honestly, that's the kind of depth that matters. Like I remember, like he did fantastic in a couple times I saw him this season. He's not Saka. He doesn't need to be. He allows the replacement level of Saka to be a good player rather than a last year. I believe it was who was Saka's backup last year? Was it Reece Nelson? Was it like
Yes.
Pedia? Like
No,
these
I
guys.
think 2 seasons. I think
Madueke is a level above those guys, is my point, and he was a fantastic signing for them. He came into Arsenal understanding his depth. Norgard too came in very high floor player. He'll probably leave because he didn't get that many minutes, but having him as an option for rotation, just that was another older depth signing who I can say for years of watching him is a guy who's going to bring it all, has a great mentality, and I think Madueke has a great mentality as well.
Yeah, but again, there's one thing we don't talk about when we talk about Arsenal. We also need to give credit to the Arsenal board for bringing in the sporting director, that is Andres Beta. That guy did a very great job. Remember, he got into Arsenal March 30th of 2025. Just look at within that period, look at the kind of transformation he has made. He was the one who signed the Kepa Arrizabalaga. He signed the Martin Zubimendi, signed Christian Nogard. He was the same person who signed Christian Mosquera. These are players who have really contributed to the success of Arsenal. The likes of Noni Madueke from Chelsea, Victor Goycores from Sporting Lisbon, Ebere Jeze from Crystal Palace, Nkapie from Bayer Leverkusen. These are the quality of players. So you see that if you look at these players now, I don't know if there is any of them I'm going to rate below standard. No, they all gave a very good account of themselves.
To be honest, like I don't think that any of them in a vacuum are like absolutely crazy elite players. Like none of these players are at the level of peak Van Dijk from 5 years ago in Liverpool one, or what like De Bruyne. Like I think the best player is probably Rice or Saka, who are both absolutely fantastic players. Don't get me wrong, but neither of them are. I feel like in the conversation for best in their position in league history. Like none of them are quite that level. And it's just a fantastic team. I think it's a testament to depth. All these signings you said are great depth. They're replaced. Like they've been able to compete on all fronts this season, even if they don't win the Champions League or FA Cup or League Cup. And yeah, I feel like they've sputtered out again in 22-23 and last year based on injuries, and they went and got depth to replace that. And it's a very good it's a very good strategy by the sporting director to recognize that.
That's why it shows you how important it is for one to always have a very good sporting director. And we know what Andres Beta has done in other places where he has worked. He has really done very well before Arsenal brought him on board. We knew what he did when he was at Atletico Madrid. He did so well. He was the one who signed, I think, the likes of Antoine Griezmann, the likes of Jan Oblak, Rodri, João Felix. This was the guy who was the brain behind those things.
Marcos Llorente.
So this guy is a genius. So far as I'm concerned, he's a man who understands this business when it comes to signing players.
I'll say this: like, if you look at the 22-year journey of Arsenal, like right around the time they won the league, the Invincibles year, they built the stadium. Like, I think that 2004 was maybe their last year in Highbury. So Emirates might have opened in 2006. They went into a lot of debt around the same time that Chelsea got a lot of investment. And like just the last 20 years of Arsenal is pretty crazy because they had to spend 10 years, 15 years paying off that debt. They weren't able to invest in the squad. Arsene Wenger worked wonders to get them fourth every year. It was a joke, but it was really wonderful what he did from a playing pitch side. Just a shame for the fans had to deal with that. They built the stadium. They tried to pour a bunch of finances back in the team once the stadium was complete. They did so a little poorly, paying extra wages to some guys who probably deserved it based on past performance, but based on future, they kind of got lazy. I'm talking about Ozil and Aubameyang, who got paid and basically said, I'd checked out of the squad. And Arteta was brought in. He had 2 years. He had to take 2 years and basically be like, we're going to get 8th, 7th, 8th place. We're going to kick these guys out. We're going to kick out all the deadwood. It's really impressive to me just that he was able to keep with the rest of the squad guys. Like once Aubameyang and Ozil are gone and some other guys, will refresh the squad. And within a couple of years, he was able to bring it back to just a great level. So I think it's a crazy journey for Arteta. I think it's very rare managers get the patience to build something like this. Klopp did, and I think that Ed Maresca will at Man City, but it's just the 7-year journey, 6.5-year journey for Arteta is pretty
So, so,
interesting.
so, so, Joe, there's one thing I would like us to discuss about Arsenal because now we said that this season their brand of football was not that beautiful like previous seasons.
Their fans won't care.
Don't you think that now that they've won the league, the pressure of winning the title will no more be there, and now they'll have the confidence now to play more expressive style of play maybe next season. Don't you think
I don't
that's
think so.
possible?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that they found something that works, and I think that if it's a 90 to 95 point title season like it was a couple of last years, they might struggle because I just don't think it's in them to go out and all firepower. I think where this Arsenal team really shines is again these gritty games where they know they can keep the defense locked down, shut down chances like they had yesterday, and win 1-0. And we've seen a lot of title teams be able to do that in the past, like the Jose Mourinho's first Chelsea stint, a stint at Inter. We're kings of the 1-0. We've seen that being a very effective strategy. So I don't think so, George. Maybe it'll change it a little bit. I think that Arteta's smart enough to bring in some fresh faces this summer because he doesn't want to stagnate. But I think we might see some small changes. But I think they know this works and it can get there from there.
So you feel it worked because probably those who are supposed to be high contenders with Arsenal, the likes of Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool, we'll call Manchester City because Manchester City really competed. You think because those teams didn't step up their game, that's why things worked out for Arsenal. Is that the point you're making?
I think that Arsenal was a very good team for 4 years straight and happened to win the title this year because the opposition was a little weaker. And I also think that the Premier League across the board this season, the quality was higher, which meant to less variance between top upper teams and lower teams. I've said this, like the relegated teams are better than years past. The top teams are probably worse than years past. I think it's good for competitive balance of the league. I think it's probably bad that I think your PSG is probably are better than any team in the Premier League this season. I think we'll see that next week in the Champions League final. I think that this is Arsenal is an exceptional team, deserving title win. But again, I feel like the Arsenal of 2 years ago was better, and just they just didn't run into that Man City team of 2 years ago this season. And it's not saying some title teams are better than others. I don't think Arsenal fans will care. This is a thought exercise, but it's just my personal thought.
I'm sure they will not really mind because a team that last won the Premier League in 2004, that's 22 years ago. I'm sure if you look at the social media, everywhere is agog. Arsenal fans are so excited. The
Yes.
players, everybody is so happy because this is their fourth Premier League title. When it comes to top flight league in England, they've won 14 in total. But for Premier League, we started in 1992-1993 season. This is their fourth Premier League. So that's quite
Crazy.
commendable for Arsenal. And we'll say congratulations to them. I'm very happy that at least Arsenal fans can celebrate because I can't remember when last they celebrated in this manner. It's been very, very long.
I
And they've
remember
been
again
very patient.
the Arsenal meme years. Like one of my first seasons watching was the Invincible season, and I remember it, and I'm like, oh, this Arsenal is really good, and then like they didn't really win, and then 1 year became 5 years, became 10 years. It's kind of crazy. It's now been 22 years. They've come close a couple times. George, do you remember when? Who was it? The defender just sat on the pitch in the middle of a game against Birmingham City. I think they were up in the league by like 8 or 9 points. I think in like 2007-8 season, and one of their defenders just sat in the middle of the pitch and pretended he was hurt even though he wasn't, and it was just like that guy's a weak mentality, and they lost the title, I believe, to Manchester United with Cristiano Ronaldo that season. But they had a huge lead. I think it was like my sophomore year of college, 2007-2008.
Manchester United, I think, was one of those teams that did so well during that
Yes.
era. But I don't know. they need to really make effort to find their form. Let's see what Carrick will be able to do. But I feel Michael Carrick will have a very, very big responsibility next season because now he will be competing in Europe and then he'll also be competing domestically.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
one thing I've realized is when a team has that responsibility of competing both internationally and locally, it really takes a lot of squad depth for you to be very competitive. That's one of the reasons why you see most of the uh, mid-table teams who maybe one way or the other they're able to find themselves playing in Europe. You see them struggling. Look at the likes of Nottingham Forest who got themselves in Europe. You notice in the league they struggled. Same thing happened with Crystal Palace. They weren't doing too well. Like we saw the way they were more competitive last season in the Premier League. But because they have to play both the Conference League or the Europa League and also play in the league, it becomes very, very demanding for them. And unfortunately, they don't have the budget to have a very good squad depth like top clubs like Arsenal, Man City, and then teams like Liverpool and the rest of them. So it's always a very big challenge. We see, I'm waiting to see how Manchester United, Michael Carrick will be able to manage things next season.
they've had good depth on attack this season. I mean, Casemiro's leaving, and we'll see. Bruno has been Iron Man, and he's 32, which is not ancient, but like you kind of wonder how long can this guy play 60 games a season, 90 minutes. Like it's really incredible how much he's played, just how many games he's played without getting hurt, Bruno. So yeah, I agree with you. It is interesting. I think the parity on the top is good for the league. This is the third different champion in 3 different seasons. If
Yes.
Man City wins again next season, it'll almost be a completely different team than the team that won 2 years ago. And I think that's good for the league. Like every single week, there's something to talk about in the title race. When Spain is done 3 weeks in advance,
Yeah.
Italy, Germany,
yeah.
France, all done. So I think it's good for the league.
So Joe, we also need to talk about Bournemouth because today the draw they got against Man City secured them a spot in Europe. Now, one thing that you must understand now is that even the team that finishes 8th might even end up playing in Europe next season.
Serious possibility if Brentford beat Liverpool and Aston Villa lose, because Aston Villa doesn't care about this game. And Aston Villa gets 5th, and Aston Villa win, which again, all of those things are very possible. I don't think all 3 of them happening are likely, but there's a 6th Champions League spot, and that 7th and 8th are then bumping up. So it's a possibility. There's still that possibility. It's very real. Aston Villa play Man City, which are pretty much guaranteed second at this point. So we'll see, George. It'll be interesting. I think the relegation race is going to be more interesting on Sunday. I think West Ham and Spurs. Spurs again lost to Chelsea of all teams, and this is Chelsea's second win and they're only they've scored 2 goals, which is as many goals as they've scored in the last 2 months combined. So West Ham obviously looked awful on Sunday, but pretty good against Arsenal, as good as you would expect against league leaders. So I think it'll be interesting. I think one of them play Everton, and I forget one of them play Leeds, I think.
And that West Ham is playing against Leeds United, and then Tottenham will be playing against Everton. One thing is, Everton is one team you can't predict. I remember what they did to Newcastle on the last game of the Premier League. In fact, Newcastle were fortunate to make it to the Champions League last season because Aston Villa lost to Manchester United on the last day. So Everton is that team you can't predict. They can come to your home and defeat you. So I think it's still open because a win for West Ham in their last game and a loss for Tottenham means West Ham will escape. But if Tottenham is able to get at least a draw against Everton, then that means West Ham will be relegated. I'm sure a lot of West Ham fans will be rooting for Everton
yes.
in that last
It's
game.
going to be an exciting final day regardless. There's European spots on the line. There's relegation on the line. It's going to be awesome. Really quickly, final questions. Number 1, do you think it's right that Southampton got kicked out of the playoff final? George and I did not talk about this. George, yes or no? Do you think that's fair?
I think it's fair because you can't be cheating and then you want to get rewarded. No, it doesn't
Yes,
work that way because they cheated. They spied on Middlesbrough before the game, and that is unacceptable
you're right.
because the rule says 72 hours to the game. You are not supposed to do that, which
Yes.
they went against the rule. So that's what you
They
get
were
for.
pretty blatant. It's pretty clear that there's the great picture. It looks like almost a satire of a spy in a cartoon. He's like behind a tree taking a picture. He looks that. But I agree. Interestingly, I think that Middlesbrough, automatically sticking Middlesbrough in there. I'm not sure. Maybe it's more fair to do something else. But I think it's the best. It's the best solution given the short time frame. And interesting for Southampton. We'll see a Middlesbrough or Hull City in the Premier League next season. Number two, what's your do you think this Arsenal team? Where do you think they stack up? Is this the best Arsenal team of the last 4 years, or do you agree with me that maybe 2 years ago, the 23-24 season, where they got much more points, is a better team? And do you feel like they're going to change their play style next year based on their confidence they began this year? Number three, what do you think is going to happen in the relegation race Sunday? Is it West Ham? Is it Tottenham? Is there going to be drama? Is it going to be boring? Let us know your thoughts. Thank you for listening.